Nobody was looking good. But at the end of it all, in absolute disgust and grief, we created the European Union. That generation of largely Christian leaders, bless them, they knew what they were doing. And we should honour it, build on it, and make it even better, in my opinion. Whereas instead, the Brexit lobby, who I think have been hijacked by international oligarchical, corporate and military-industrial complex types who control the mass media, have brainwashed the good people of Britain and the good people of England, particularly, into thinking this is a good idea. Brexit is the solution to everything. Well, of course it's not. It's a complete nonsense, as I've been saying for the last year. I just want to do a little catch-up on the week's events, because this week is very important. We've had a very senior civil servant, Sir Philip Rutman, resign from the Home Office and accusing Priti Patel of vicious assaults on staff, on him, and running like a republic of fear. I mean, this woman really is not fit to be a Home Office minister. She's not fit to be in the cabinet. I'm sorry. Her education is absolutely lacking in morality, and she has absolutely no understanding of the UK and what we are and how we think. She has no understanding of Ireland. It's her that said, why don't we bring back famine as a tool to make the Irish come into play? You know, she has no working brain cells connected with the heart. The woman doesn't understand. And so I think she's got to go. She must resign. I hope by next week she'll have gone. Well done, Sir Philip Rutman, for having, you know, a bit of decency and a bit of common sense, standing up to a bully. More civil servants should come out and do this. And, you know, we do have a huge, highly educated civil service that must be utterly appalled at Brexit. Boris Johnson seems to be going down this hard Brexit route. Well, Johnson doesn't understand Britain either. He doesn't understand true Brits like me. He isn't British. He's a USA citizen who's just got onto a bandwagon that advances his personal power, as David Cameron said. I mean, David Cameron at least had a bit of integrity and could see things from two sides, and he did support Remain in the referendum. But he's too weak. He never realised what he'd unleashed. He never stood up for it. He should have been speaking out over the last 3 years since the referendum, saying it was an absolutely disastrous thing. Instead, he's been silent and hiding under a bush, writing his memoirs. You know, the time Cameron came out of the woodwork and owned up to the catastrophe that is Brexit. What we have anyway, good news in Ireland, is the Irish people are waking up. You know, the Irish people were literate, highly educated when the Anglo-Saxons were coming drunken off their boats, you know, and totally illiterate. The Irish have voted for Sinn Féin, a big way. And Sinn Féin are a Republican movement that want a united Ireland and want an island of peace, shared prosperity. They're socialist with a small s, they're green, they're environmentalist, they're gender, you know, equality. And so they represent the true heart of Ireland, and the people of Ireland have voted for them. Now, I think there's going to be pretty soon a second election in Ireland. This time they'll field more candidates and they will become the government. The other two parties are doing everything they can to keep them out of power. It won't work. You know, the Irish people are not stupid. We can see what's happening there. And so Sinn Féin will be on the path to a united Ireland pretty soon. And that's the karmic consequence of the English stupidity that swallowed the Brexit lies. You know, you lose your country if you're ignorant. This is the law of history, the iron cast law of history. If you're not worthy of the empire, you fall. Yeah, we all watch Game of Thrones. It was filmed, a lot of it, in Northern Ireland, and also in Alberta, which I used to live in. And the whole moral of the Game of Thrones is if you're stupid, you lose power. Well, that's happening. We're watching the Game of Thrones, and sorry, that's United Ireland. Coming back, and it's a matter of, I think, months, and things will move quite quickly, I think. Then we have in Scotland the SNP, again, extremely well poised to take Scotland out of the defunct, moribund and morally bankrupt United Kingdom governance structure, which the only way of saving the United Kingdom, in my opinion, is with a total constitutional reform, which I've proposed. I've written it up. I'm a political scientist, the Bentham of the day, right? If you want to save the UK, you have to go down a constitutional reform initiative route, and that means getting rid of this House of Lords, which the Irish and the Scots don't take seriously, and which has no real representative power, and yet turning that into a federal Senate, which could be the government base for the UK as a whole. I've written this up on my website. I'm happy to send people the information. I don't see otherwise how the UK will be saved. It's going to break up into an independent Scotland and an independent United Ireland. And I'm pleased to see that Airbus have signed a big deal to invest more heavily in Scotland. Prestwick, an airport I've flown out of many times near Glasgow. This is good news. Scotland is going to be a flourishing and happy member, I hope, of the European Union. I'm going to be fasting every Sunday from now on until either the whole UK or Scotland and Ireland, become once again members of the European Union. So please hurry up, because Sundays are a bit grim without any kind of food. So why do I care? Why do I bother? Why do I fast? Why do I teach people about the follies of Brexit? Well, it really deeply saddens me to see the country I know and love and identified with, the UK, doing this self-destruct act with ignorant people that have hijacked it and taken it over. And so I will be continuing to argue the case for staying within the greater European sea of nations. And this to me is a very Davidian perspective, because to be part of a connectivity, to be whole, is the same word as health. And it's the ultimate meaning of the word Catholic. David was a Catholic Christian who, by that he meant he wanted to be part of the wholeness story behind existence. Love is about wholeness. It's not about separation and splitting off and violence, which comes from separation and the illusion of otherness. No, unity, love, is what joins us all together. So I've proposed, actually, the NHS should be rebranded the National Healing Service. I've worked in the National Health Service in London and, identify with the medical profession as an academic, and I'm an expert in the history of medicine to some extent. One can never have enough hours in the day to, to study the whole thing, but I think if we renamed it the National Healing Service, the emphasis then would be on the process of healing, and it would draw on other methodologies of healing that can help people, pain relief, and studying the mysteries of the human body-mind, psychiatry and so on. Instead of just giving people drugs to damp the symptoms, we should be giving them therapy to understand the causes of these problems. So that's why the National Healing Service, to me, that's another campaign I want to do. And that, to me, fits in totally. David was someone that advocated moderation in lifestyle. He didn't do alcohol very much, if at all. So he did things in moderation, which is how we heal. In the Catholic traditions, I honour today also Pico della Mirandola, who was a great Christian Kabbalist in Florence, and he wrote a series of 600 propositions, supplementary to the 900 for which he's very known. He wrote a second lot, 600 propositions, which were about how we can reconcile Judaism and the Kabbalah with Christianity. And he had studied deeply the mysteries of the Kabbalah, which I have, although again, there's never enough time in many lifetimes to penetrate the mysteries. But Pico did his best. And he had Kabbalists teaching him. A man called Yohanan Alamani was his Kabbalah teacher. it's thought, in Florence. And so he'd studied the concepts of Lurianic Kabbalah, and he understood the mysteries really in depth. And so this leads me to my next point about the Middle East, which is, as someone that's a kind of universalist Kabbalist, I want peace in the Middle East very badly. I love Jerusalem. I love the Palestinians and the Israelis both, in all their complexity and cultural variation. That's why when I've been visiting there, I've set up this thing called the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East, modelled on the South Africa thing. I mean, you know, and I had this vision of the Golden Gate reopening. It's all blocked up at the moment on the eastern wall of the old city of Jerusalem. It says it'll only open when the Messiah comes. Well, like Kafka, I'm saying we can't wait for the Messiah anymore. He's been too long a coming. Let's do it ourselves. Let's become the Messiah collectively, all of us on the planet. Let's go for collective enlightenment, and let's open that gate. And let's get a peace tent up there where everyone can come, peace pilgrims from all over the planet. That's the realization of Abraham's dream, of Moses' dream, of Jesus' dream, and Muhammad's dream. They're all part of that messianic work, which every single Kabbalist, Sufi and Christian on the planet is also. That's millions of us. It looks to me like we're the majority, so I think we have the right to open that gate, folks. And that's the idea behind the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East. Now look, Trump and Netanyahu, I mean, in a weird kind of way, they want the same thing. That's why they put forward this peace plan, which has some very good things in it. And although the press have laughed it out of court, and most people in the Muslim world have said, you know, bin it, it's ridiculous, I've said, no, let's read it and let's give them the benefit of the doubt. So I've gone through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I've written a huge commentary, 50-page footnotes to the peace plan of Trump. And I've gone into it in great detail, and I've pointed out its problems. And I've pointed out its good bits. And I've circulated this through the World Intellectual Forum, through my colleagues in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission for the Middle East. And, you know, I'm waiting for feedback. I've had a really nice comment from a friend of mine in Gaza, bless her, saying, I won't go into it, but basically saying, you know, what a great proposal it was. Because the people of Gaza, they are desperate to solve this problem. And the people of you know, who the rockets from Gaza are coming down on. Nobody wants this conflict to go on. The only people that want it to go on are actually the IDF and the hardcore Hamas lot, whose ego is, well, I'm the warrior, so I'm going to carry on, you know, I'm very important, give me your money. That's the warrior class that we're up against. I'm merely an intellectual, and I'm speaking for the millions of people that want peace on the planet. We don't want, I mean, I respect the warriors, thank you very much, you've done your job, now come out of uniform and demob, demilitarize. The Trump peace plan says it wants the total demilitarization of Palestine, okay, but it doesn't say anything about a demilitarization of Israel. You see, I think it's a joint job, and that's why I've pointed to these kind of lacuna, and that what should happen is workshops, programs in the educational wing of both Palestinian and Israeli school children and university students to learn about non-violence. It's a discipline. It's about communication, it's about hearing, it's about mediation skills. All these Israelis and Palestinians, you know, they could learn this, and they could become a world centre for peacemaking. If only we can get them to make peace. It would boost the tourist trade enormously. Imagine we got the Golden Gate open, and peace pilgrims want to come from all over the planet and shake hands with Palestinians and Israelis. And, you know, this is the world I want to live in. This is called the world of planetary enlightenment. And I'm saying it's time to get on with it. Okay, so the World Intellectual Forum, you know, is one of the bodies that is trying to help with that, as well as my institute, IPSKIP. And you're welcome to get involved, help, you know. Wherever you are on the planet, you can do your bit through your own spiritual work, your own meditation work, your prayers, your practices, whatever religion you are or none. And this is where I call the World Intellectual Forum is trying to work with what I call intellecting, the verb. Okay, it was Abelard, one of my heroes, who coined the phrase, seems to, intellecting as a verb. It's a process. There isn't this thing called intellect, and there aren't these things called intellectuals. These are like grammatical mistakes. There's intellecting, which is like thinking together, which is what I'm trying to do with these talks. I'm trying to get the planetary noetic community, the intellectuals, if you want, people capable of intellecting, to actually switch on the brain and do some intellecting. If we do that, enough of us, we will get this Golden Gate opened in our lifetime. We will get peace between Israel and Palestine. We will get an end to the coronavirus, because we will get the scientists, cracking their gene codes and finding a vaccine. I mean, Netanyahu, Trump, Boris Johnson, they don't have the capacity to do much intellecting, it seems. But there are people on their staffs who have some intellect left, and they should be the ones that we can reach out to. And it's a serious problem. Why are politicians so stupid? Why are they so egotistical and so stuck in not peace magic, but in war magic? I think because they think in opposition, polarities, dualism. They're stuck in a sort of dark age of dualism where everything is either or. It's like an old-fashioned logic. They've never read Nagarjuna. They've never heard of rainbow magic, and so their immediate response is to just go down the polarization route, and that the manifestation of that is war and bombing, and that's what Erdogan is doing. It's what Putin is trying not to do that, but he will do it a little bit if you have to, if you push him. I mean, Russia will do that, and historically does. So it's so important, therefore, that we get the intellectuals, the intellectors of the planet to activate our default conscience programs. And I'm the coordinator for the World Intellectual Forum for Europe. And we have colleagues in Russia, Ukraine, Italy, Germany, here in France, UK, and so on. But we need more. And I'm thinking what one should write really is a series of essays on the duties of intellectuals. I think everyone who's a student, who's studied at university, who's benefited from higher education, has a duty to be speaking out about truth and right reason. We need a new enlightenment in Europe like we had in the 18th century. We have the potential for an amazing breakthrough. The European Union is just a vehicle of our collective intelligence. We can make it work for us. And this was the mistake of the Brexiteers. I think they were afraid of it. They didn't understand it. They're not very clever, these people. You can see them, Farages. They don't have the intellect to work out what Europe stands for. And so their response is just trash it, bin it, turn your back on it and run away. I mean, very stupid. I'm sorry. They need to go back to school. And I've also said that every democratic parliamentary assembly in the world should have a truth veracity bill. I've drafted it. If they can start speaking truth again, we can get some light in on this dire planetary situation. Because only truth, as you saw with the whole impeachment of Trump thing, Congress is full of people that lie. Same with the UK Parliament. That's why these Tories are getting away with what they're doing. A truth bill for every Congress, including in India, where they've passed this silly citizens' amendment bill to penalise Muslims and create the appearance of persecuting Muslims, which of course is not a good thing because there's 200 million Muslims in India, and if they organise, and it would be a nightmare. So a bit more nuanced politics, please, a bit more intellectual politics, and a bit more speaking of truth. And then we're going to be able to actually move forward on the peace front. I want to finish now with a little quote from the Buddhist scripture I'm working on. I'm doing commentaries, as you know, on all the sacred scriptures of the world. I've done the 6 Gospels. That's the 4 traditional ones, plus Mary Magdalene and Thomas's Gospel, which I think should be printed in the normal Bibles. If I was Archbishop of Canterbury, I'd make that a law. Because Christians need to understand their Gnostic heritage as well. And I've also done the Jewish scriptures, the books of Enoch, the 3 books of Enoch, and I'm choosing sort of less known texts because they're very interesting. And now I'm working through the Dhammapada, which is the great Buddhist scripture. It's their New Testament, if you want. very early, seems to be sayings recorded orally from memory, spoken by Buddha himself. So it's like the words of Buddha. And in the second chapter, which I've been commenting on today, there's this wonderful sequence on watchfulness or heedfulness. There's no real way of translating this in one word in English. The concept is is basically not falling asleep on the job, being awake, being aware, and having zeal, apamada, non-laxity, earnestness, diligence. These are all possible translations. So this is about having energy, right energy. Watchfulness is the path of immortality. Unwatchfulness is the path of death. Those who are watchful never die. Those who do not watch are already as dead. Those who with a clear mind have seen this truth, those who are wise and ever watchful, they feel the joy of watchfulness, the joy of the path of the great ones. And those who in high thought and in deep contemplation, with ever-living power, advance on the path, they in the end reach enlightenment, the peace supreme, and infinite joy. Well, those are the first three verses. I'm not going to go read the whole lot. You can study them, the Dhammapada, and you can listen to my detailed commentary, which will be on my Green University website, Global Green University. It's put out there for everyone. You know, I'm the Robin Hood of academia. I'm trying to give away enlightenment. And as I once said, I was invited to America at a university to give away some PhD degrees, and I said if it was up to me, I'd give you all the full degrees all at once, because academia is based on this step-by-step thing. You do your degree, then you do another one, then you do another one. Like going up the steps, the gradus in Latin for steps. Whereas I think we should be making a leap to enlightenment, so that we should all get what Meister Eckhart said, you know, the Christ is born within us, or we're not doing our job. And that really is what Buddha was saying. That was the point of Buddha. Now, it goes on, the last couple of verses invoke Indra. It was by watchfulness that Indra became the chief of the gods. And thus the gods praise the watchful, and thoughtlessness is ever despised. Well, Indra is one of my favourite gods, and when I went to Nalanda, where the greatest university of Tantric Buddhism was, not far from where Buddha lived, it was so full of Indra signs that it clicked. I realised Indra was the deity of Buddha. It was the deity of Kapilavastu and the whole area of that northern India part. And that's why the dorje became the symbol of Indra in Tantric Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism particularly, Vajrayana Buddhism, is the dorje, the lightning bolt path. I have a dorje here, which is a symbolic thunderbolt coming from Indra. Okay, and this is a symbol, you know, this is the most important thing in Tibetan Buddhism. And it represents that lightning bolt of activity or energy or diligence or watchfulness. So it's a symbol for our being awake. And so let us be awake, my friends. That's really the message I want to share today. And Buddha is you know, putting it beautifully there. And together we can then get this planetary enlightenment moving. And we will come to new places, new kinds of enlightenment that defy the categorizations of the religions. You know, these are the old style Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, Jewish, etc. We need an enlightenment that goes to the core of them all. Just as light is not, you know, any religion, it's light. So we need, you know, to find the essence of the heart of all of these traditions, which is what Ken Wilber's been going on about for years. Bless him, my kind of American counterpart. But, you know, we need to see the essence of them all come true. And that's why I suppose my work is a bit more political than Ken Wilber's and a bit more applied to active peacemaking. So, I'm going to end there. Thank you for listening, and let's I'll see you. And tomorrow there's an election in Israel. You know, the parties are voting. I hope that it leads to the election of whoever can most advance Israel in the direction of peace and justice and fellowship with Palestinians, and activate that peace plan that we're all around the world wanting to help them with. We've got to get out of this logjam of warfare and conflict and polarization and otherness. That's all outmoded thinking. We have to think now in terms of love, universalism, and as St. David would have said, you know, let's go for the whole enlightenment package, please. Okay, shalom.